Welcome to Passion. I'm your host, Britt Ivy, and today we have with us Kim and Steve Cooper, all the way from Australia. Kim has written 8 books, and Kim and Steve are here to speak with us today about healing relationships, troubled relationships. And thank you so much for being with us again today on Passion. How are you two today?
Good, thanks. Hi, Britt.
Hi.
Fantastic. Hi, Britt.
Hi,
Great to
guys.
talk to you again.
Wonderful to have you on Passion again. I am so fascinated and grateful for your work. And we're going to be speaking today about some of your books, Kim, and the tips and tools in one in particular called the Love Safety Net Workbook. And we're going to show the cover of that workbook to our audience here in a moment. And they can find that workbook and tips and tools and whatnot on your website, narcissismcured.com or thelovesafetynet.com. And this workbook is really a transformational work of yours, Kim, being a detective and finding answers to really what some would term abusive or troubled, difficult relationships. Answers that until now have been really uncovered in the world, and traditionally people are told, move on, that's never going to get better, change the locks, sign the papers, and move if you have to across the country, but give up. And your work and what we're going to be talking about today has to do with giving folks hope that are in those positions of being in love but not having the tools to make a relationship work that's healthy. Instead, their tools create emotional drama and trauma and abuse and just all this ridiculous behavior. I'm thinking of one book, Emotional Stupidity, that you wrote. I just love, and a favorite of mine, 10 Steps to Healing Codependence. So why don't you go ahead and share a little bit. In a few minutes, we're going to show a clip that I love. It opens with the music from one of my favorite artists, Sade, and the words, when I was previewing your clips and your work here and watching that, it reminded me of the words in this song that in college I must have played 2,478 times. In fact, the neighbors finally came and said, if we hear Sade, you're a junior now. We thought after you were a sophomore you'd get tired of that, but you're still playing it. And it talks about bulletproof soul. And you really have to have a bulletproof soul to go into this type of relationship and come out alive. And your life's work now is, it's an amazing body of work that gives hope to people that have been told it's hopeless. So now, after me having a 2-second intro that's turned into a 5-minute intro, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about what we're going to see in that clip, and a little bit about your work.
Thanks, Britt. I think the important thing to understand, particularly about the Love Safety Net Workbook, but all of our books, I guess except for Back from the Looking Glass, which is really specifically about dealing with abusive behavior, is that really most of it doesn't have that much to do with bad relationships or with abuse. It's like, healthy diet and exercise will heal a lot of your health problems. Our work is really, it doesn't focus on the negative. It just focuses on the positive relationship skills that people need to build and
Exactly.
that often aren't in place. And so really the steps working through the 4 pillars of a stable family that we offer in the Love Safety Net Workbook, I mean, they're exercises that will help you with all of the relationships in your life. They're basically, things that if we were fortunate, we learned growing up, usually just from role models. Unfortunately, these things aren't being taught in school. We think that they should be. But if you weren't fortunate enough to have positive role models in your household when you grew up, it can be very, very difficult. And so that's where we really feel like we're filling a gap there of something that's really needed in society.
Well, I think you deliver. I mean, the tools are fantastic, and I love how you just mentioned you really focus on the positive. And there are all sorts of tools in here that help all relationships, parents, children, siblings. These are tools and relationship skills that will help all relationships. And, what we'll be dealing with in our future DVD series, because you have such an amazing body of work and so much data that you've put together to help people get the courage to humble ourselves in love's presence and remain open and continue to love despite what may be going on behaviorally. Somebody who from the outside looks very, very angry, angry countenance can be addictive. And then, so this is a dance that you call a sad dance of really love and anger playing out with two people. And this can happen not just in husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, but it can happen with parents and children. So these tools are amazing and really applicable to all areas of life. So congratulations. Congratulations, really.
Thank you. It's really important, Britt, that everybody understands that you need to find those skills somehow. And that was where Kim really many years ago decided that she was just going to go find the skills and going to learn them and going to start putting them into practice. And it was a decision that she made to do it. Before that, we're just in the dance and we're going around in circles. But then we've got to stop, we've got to find some tools, and we've got to start working and start building and start cooperating.
Brilliant.
It's very easy to just blame your partner, if your marriage isn't what you would like it to be. The most easy and obvious thing is to just blame somebody else. And really, back when we were going through difficult times, Steve's behavior was pretty bad, and it would have been easy for me to just point the finger and say that it was all his fault. But I also pretty soon realized that wasn't really going to change things, and that I needed to make some changes myself.
And you're right, Britt, transformative is the word. You have to transform what was a bad relationship into a better relationship where you're becoming one person, you're becoming a team. You're putting the pettiness aside. We're starting to work together.
Right.
That's the essence of the work that we have to offer.
I agree. And it wasn't conscious at first because, traditional psychology will say, well, the person has to want to change, and we're talking physical abuse back in the day. We're talking, very abusive physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all the way around. It's devastating to a person. And Kim's exactly right. To blame would be the first obvious. And the ironic thing is, you spoke to the audience about this, Steve, in our previous show with the word confabulation. You'll just, one partner will make things up. And the one who's actually, whacking the other one in the face will say, oh, it's your fault, and actually blame the person. I mean, so there's so much blame going on, it's ridiculous. So what I've understood from your work is really it's two people that need to grow up, and there's a lot of developmental work that needs to be done to grow up. Now, traditional psychology will say, well, both people have to want to. They have to march into a shrink's office and say, I want to get better. I know I'm a narcissist and this is just terrible, or I know I'm a codependent and this is, not going to work anymore. I have some wonderful psychologist friends. I'm not, knocking that at all. But what you have found is that that's not necessarily the case, and a true narcissist will never. They're blind to their own deal. It's like I've heard it said about other diseases, like alcoholism is the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. It's a blind spot that's not there. And your work, basically, it's just behavior. And finally, the other person starts realizing something's going on here that's different. They didn't have the conscious thought, oh no, something's wrong with me, I need to go fix it.
No, that's right. It's really important that you say that, and especially that you highlight this idea that people have to want to change. I mean, I was told that so many times, and I really just had to throw it out the window because, I mean, I was dealing with some incredibly difficult behavior at home from Steve back in our bad old days. And, you know, expecting that that he was going to want to ever change, that wasn't going to happen, and it was leaving all of the power in his hands. So instead, I had to turn to modalities that taught me better skills about actually dealing with difficult behavior.
And one of the most
Wonderful.
important things on that point too, Britt, is that if a couple want to change together at the same time, there has to be a negotiation for them. If there's a trouble in the first place, there's trouble. There's a breakdown in communication, there's fighting, there's discord. But then if the couple wants to go and get some healing from a therapist, and the therapist says, well, you both need to want to change, that's impossible unless there's some negotiation, because there's already a conflict. So without that negotiation phase, there is never going to be a decision where both people want to heal themselves together at the same time. So those skills that we offer are based on negotiation skills. Now, the negotiation doesn't necessarily come first. Sometimes you've got to bust some of the bad behavior. You've got to uncover the bad behavior. You've got to really lift the veil on all of the abuse that's going on. So there's some logical steps there, and hopefully we can put the tools in the hands of the people that need them with our work.
Well, very well put, Steve. I like how you described that, because when Kim pointed out in one of her books that abuse often manifests as just lack of negotiation skills. It's two people getting to a point where they're both not getting what they need and they're freaking out and they don't know what to do, maybe, except to maybe scream or throw things or leave or do something else. So that negotiation piece is really important. And by studying the corporate world, Kim, you found some really good tools there that you offer in your work.
Yeah, a lot of my work has come from corporate leadership skills. I was really shocked when I discovered how different the tools were that were available when I changed over from, instead of looking at traditional marriage counseling or psychology, I started looking at emotional intelligence training and corporate leadership. And really there was just so much more available that was so much more practical and offered a lot more hope.
Excellent. Excellent work. Well, we are going to go here in a moment to another clip of you two. And Kim, why don't you go ahead and just, when we come back, speak to what's happening there. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful clip. I'm excited to share this with our audience. Of course, Sade is singing, so here we go. It's our third clip, please.
You wouldn't remember that. That was when Dad and I had just first met, and that was at a friend of his place.
Cool.
On the barbecue we went to.
It's a nice backyard.
Yeah. What about us? What do you reckon?
You look sweet younger.
We do. Is that your favourite picture of us?
No, probably this working out, I guess.
Oh yeah, that one. That was when Dad and I went to a costume party as the Avengers. That's a cool picture.
Yeah.
So do you think I'm a good mum?
Yeah. I'm glad you and Dad stopped fighting.
Yeah, it's a lot better now, isn't it?
Yes, much better.
On our radio show, Steve and I talk about the worst side of marriage and relationships. I mean, we talk about cheating, and we talk about couples lying to each other, and we talk about verbal abuse and even domestic abuse. So I guess some people might be surprised that we also play love songs in the show.
sometimes I see people who I know and they say, hey, I saw you online, and I think, wow, I would never have guessed you were having relationship troubles. But they must be, because otherwise they wouldn't have found us online. So what we see in the outside world can be something so different to what's going on in people's personal lives. And online, Kim and I can be there and help people get to someplace more positive. We'd really like to be there for everybody who needs us, and I know that's impossible, but if I could make that happen somehow, I would.
Steve and I are not therapists, but we still have a really surprising number of professionals contact us, psychologists and psychiatrists and even marriage counsellors. A lot of them getting material for their clients, but also a large number of them looking for help and answers for themselves. And I think that surprised me in the beginning, but maybe not so much now, because I really have come to understand that I think the world is ready now for lay professionals in the area of psychology, maybe perhaps in the same way that lay preachers have always had a role in church, because we've actually been through this, because, you know, we have experienced the bad side of marriage, and we have something unique to offer, I think, because of that.
Well, that was beautiful. That was beautiful, you guys. You did it. There are some tears there. I think at the beginning with the little child in between the mom and dad, walking down out in the rain. That was just really touching, because no one gets married or begins a relationship with the idea that they're not going to make it. And nobody begins a relationship thinking about divorce. So I think of, well, my parents got divorced. So I just think, you know, I was in that clip, I felt like that little kid, and how every little kid out there would want their parents to be able to stay together. And one of my heroes, Nick Vujicic, wonderful. He's also an Australian, and you know, he says pain's not relative, and he was born with no arms and no legs, and is one of the happiest people that I've ever met. And he says that the pain of having no arms and no legs is no more than having a mom and dad that are spending, you know, Christmas in two different parts of the world, and for a child that's just devastating. And I'm so excited about all the families that will benefit and be saved by your work. So thank you. You want to speak to that clip a little bit, and I'll let you talk and stop crying, and then I want to ask you a question about narcissism. We have about 7-8 minutes, you guys.
Well, that's what keeps us going. You know, it was really, it was embarrassing at first to come out and actually share so much of really the worst, the worst part of our lives that, you know, we really probably would have rather kept private. I mean, Australians more so than Americans are very private people. They don't tend to go on TV and talk about their problems in the same way that I guess people in America might be a little bit more used to. But we just saw so many people suffering that we just thought once we'd overcome these problems ourselves, we really just couldn't stay quiet. And all the testimonials that we've had now, you know, it's always, it doesn't matter how many testimonials that you've received, it's always just fantastic when we get another one.
And I think it's really, the process I went through was, I really want to share that with other guys as well. I didn't, you know, Kim writes most of the books, but the story that, from my perspective, is really important for guys to go through, because I'm an infinitely happier person now. I mean, I can't even gauge it.
Wonderful.
And back when we were having really big problems in our relationship, neither of us were happy. there was very little joy there. And now every moment, we can find some joy in, even though we're still two different people. We've still got different ideas, and we still have some problems from time to time. But especially for the guys that are watching this, I really want you to believe me and say that, you'll be happier if you can figure out how to get along with your wife or your girlfriend better. You'll just the amount of happiness you'll experience is going to be worth the small amount of work you need to put in by learning a few more skills and just facing up to the guilt and shame that you're carrying and hiding.
That is so valuable. That is so valuable. Thank you, Steve. You just mentioned guilt and shame, and this morning I was headed into a 7 a.m. meeting, and there were a couple little flowers that were bent over, and I love flowers. And anyway, I just pinched them off and carried them with me, and then they're at home in some water now, just little tiny things, and they were what do we call them? Narcissus. The flower. And it got me thinking about our interview later today. And if you would just speak briefly, the misconception about, what people think a narcissist is, and, it's somebody who wants to stare in the mirror all day and, is always preening and this and that and the other, and looking in the mirror and the pond of, the old fairy tale. And anyway, I'm just botching this whole story completely, so I'll hand it over to you. So really, what have you found is that it has to do with not knowing how to deal with guilt and shame? And Kim, you can put it better than I can.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think the problem is too that the meaning of the word has changed over time. Narcissistic personality disorder wasn't really named very well, and so, but that, rather than make things complicated, what people are usually talking about now when they are talking about a narcissistic personality is someone who will often have a double life that, there's all different degrees of how extensive that may be. But I guess the first symptom is that they're very, very different the way they treat the people close to them in private than they do in public.
Yes.
In public, this person will be usually fairly charming, fairly affable, often quite charismatic.
Yes.
But then at home, they're somebody very different. They're very, they insult their family. They put people down. They think that they're better than the people around them. They will have tantrums to get their way. They won't be clear about any kind of about negotiating fairly. And then I guess the most disturbing or hard to deal with aspect of it is that while they're behaving so badly, they will then at the same time tell other people that their family is to blame for any problems that are happening. So not only are they being rude to their family at home, but they'll try and get sympathy from other people about how poorly treated they are at home.
Wow.
Yeah, so this can be, really a very, very painful and difficult place to find yourself. But it's important to understand that this is part of a dance of two different behavior patterns. The other is codependence, and there's two sides to the coin, and it isn't just a one-way street.
Thank you. That was very well put. I'd like to just show the audience a cover of the Back from the Looking Glass book, because that really was your first book when you were dealing with this situation. And of course, you were, in a situation that seemed unworkable, and your husband was treating you one way at home, and then in public, when you were together, you'd see him treat people like you had hoped he would treat you. And, by the grace of God and a lot of hard work and miracles, really, he treats you like that now. But at the time, what does a person do who's in your position? If there's someone in the audience right now, and we only have a couple minutes here, but if there's somebody watching now who is in that position where they know that their partner is out telling people how bad they have it and then coming home and you know, really treating them poorly. What do they do with all that blame?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult, and I guess the old adage that a little bit of advice is dangerous really applies here. So I really would advise people to start with Back from the Looking Glass. It's in its 11th edition now. It actually has a different cover than I think the one that you've shown.
Yes.
But it's you know, it's very practical, very straightforward steps, 13 of them, for you to take if you're in a troubled relationship that may even be able to be described as abusive. If you don't want to leave, we don't, you know, we don't tell people they have to stay in an abusive relationship. That's not our advice. We just leave that up to the individuals, and we do give advice if people do want to leave, how to do that safely.
Okay.
But the steps are the same steps. And
Wonderful.
we've had over 1,500 testimonials from people now saying that our work has helped them.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. Well, we're going to put a few more zeros behind that, and I'm excited to be a part of that. This is just amazing.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
very gratifying work.
I can imagine. Well, thank you for your bravery and your courage to share your story. And you know, when you look at the world, the people that seem to end up helping the most people are the courageous ones that are able to tell their own stories. And that's really what touches people. And you've lived this. Otherwise, people would say, not possible. And you've lived it. And you have a whole body of work now that people can go to at www.narcissismcured.com or thelovesafetynet.com. And I just want to thank you two for coming on Passion again today, and I'm looking forward to another show with you in the future.
Thanks, Britt. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. You've really helped us get organised to come and talk and share our stories. So that's really important to us too. And we really value that.
Wonderful.
Up until now, we've really basically